Have you ever heard of a leader so committed to an idea that they're willing to tear down centuries of tradition in just a few years? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today, the incredible story of King Josiah. He launched one of history's most radical religious revolutions, and it all started with the discovery of a single lost book.
And that's really the big question at the heart of his story, isn't it? Josiah did everything right. He did everything by the book, literally. But can one person's passion, no matter how pure, really be enough to overcome the weight of an entire nation's history? Let's get into it and see what happened.
So, our story kicks off in the temple. They're doing some renovations, and the high priest stumbles upon this long-forgotten scroll, the Book of the Covenant, which many believe was an early version of Deuteronomy. And when this thing is read to King Josiah, he's not just interested, he is absolutely shaken to his core. The words lay bare just how far his people have strayed from their founding laws. What he does next is just radical. He doesn't keep this information to himself or just among the elites. No, he gathers everyone in Jerusalem, from the least to the greatest, and reads the entire book out loud for all to hear. This isn't just a king issuing an order. This is him making a public contract. He gets the people to pledge themselves to this covenant, and in doing so, he builds a powerful popular mandate for the revolution that's about to unfold. Okay, so with the whole nation now on his side, Josiah wastes zero time. He immediately launches this massive, systematic purge of every single religious practice that doesn't line up with that rediscovered book. And this is not a gentle suggestion, This is a complete, top-to-bottom overhaul of the kingdom's entire spiritual identity. He starts right at the heart of it all, the temple in Jerusalem. For generations, the temple had kind of become this mix of all sorts of different religious practices. So Josiah orders everything that isn't dedicated to his God to be removed. We're talking symbols for other gods like Baal and Asherah, paraphernalia for worshiping the stars, even sacred horses and chariots dedicated to the sun. This isn't just redecorating, folks. This is a powerful, almost violent reclaiming of a sacred space. And you can see just how methodical and, frankly, brutal this process was. Take the Asherah pole, for example, a really important symbol of the old way of worship. Josiah has it dragged out of the temple, burned to a crisp, ground into a fine powder, and then he has that dust scattered over common graves. See, the point wasn't just to get rid of the object. It was to completely obliterate its memory and to desecrate its very essence, to make sure it could never come back. And this campaign didn't just stop in the capital city. Oh no. This was a nationwide purge, stretching from the northern border all the way to the southern one. He tore down all these local shrines, these high places, and smashed their altars. He was centralizing all worship in Jerusalem. And that part about defiling sites with human bones, that was the ultimate act of desecration, a way of saying these places are permanently unclean. So this was about more than just faith. It was a major move for political and religious consolidation. And this is where the story gets almost unbelievable. One of the most significant things Josiah does is destroy the rival altar at Bethel, and he defiles it by burning human bones on it. But here's the crazy part. In doing so, he accidentally fulfills a specific prophecy made centuries earlier by a man of God whose tomb was right there on the hillside watching it all happen. You just can't make this stuff up. So after all that tearing down, after all the fire and destruction of the purge, it was finally time to build something up. Josiah gathers the entire nation, not to destroy, but to create. It was time for a unified national celebration of the Passover. And let me be clear, this was not just any Passover. The text says it explicitly. Nothing like it had ever been seen before. Not during the time of the judges, not during the reign of any previous king. This was, by all accounts, the largest, most unified religious celebration in the nation's entire history. This was the absolute peak. It really seemed like his reforms had worked. They had triumphed. But this is where the story takes a sharp and really tragic turn. Because even with this unprecedented unity, even with the most thorough purge imaginable, a fundamental problem was still there, lingering under the surface. It was like a ghost from the past that just could not be exorcised. All of that work, all of that fire and faith and national unity, it simply was not enough. The reforms, as total and complete as they seemed, were really just fixing the surface. They couldn't repair the deepest crack running through the nation's foundation. And here is the devastating reason why. The text points directly to the reign of Josiah's own grandfather, King Manasseh. His rule was seen as so corrupt, so idolatrous, that it had apparently set the nation on a course that was now irreversible. You see, Josiah was a righteous king, maybe the most righteous king of all, but even his incredible piety couldn't pay off the spiritual debt his predecessor had racked up. The past was finally coming to collect. So, what happens when a great leader's best efforts just aren't enough to change fate? Well, the fall is shockingly swift. After reaching that incredible high point with the Great Passover, the whole kingdom just unravels. I mean, just look at how quickly this all falls apart. One moment, Josiah is the great reformer king. The next, he's unexpectedly killed in battle. His son, Jehoahaz, takes the throne and lasts a whopping 3 months before he's captured and exiled by Egypt's pharaoh. And just like that, in a matter of months, Judah goes from this peak of independence to a puppet state, paying heavy taxes to a foreign power. And this comparison really says it all, doesn't it? On one side, you have Josiah's reign, decades of righteous rule, a strong pillar for the nation. On the other side, his sons, a crumbling ruin that lasted just 3 months. It just goes to show you how fragile those reforms really were. They were built on the conviction of one man, and the second he was gone, the whole thing just collapsed overnight. Which brings us right back to our central question. How do we look back on Josiah? Was he a heroic success or a tragic failure? He was the most righteous king, he led this unparalleled national revival, and yet his life's work was undone in an instant, and he couldn't save his kingdom from its ultimate doom. So was it a noble, heroic effort that should be celebrated anyway? Or was it all just a tragic failure to change something that was always unchangeable? That is something worth thinking about.